Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the deeply tragic collision between dreams and reality in Tennessee Williams's absolute masterpiece, The Glass Menagerie. If you're prepping for your AL literature exams, you are exactly where you need to be. We're going to explore the complex characters that make this play so unforgettable, and frankly, unearth some high-level insights that'll really help your essays stand out.
So let's just jump right in and start with a pretty provocative question. What if the villain of a story isn't a person at all, but reality itself? I want you to keep that idea lingering in the back of your mind, because it completely shifts how you view every single character in this play. They aren't just fighting each other, right? They're fighting the very nature of the world they're forced to live in.
Here's a quick roadmap for today. We'll cover the Wingfield family illusions, Amanda's need to cling to the past, Tom's search for escape, Jim's role as the reality catalyst, and finally, how to synthesize all this for your exam.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Wingfield family illusions, and their deeply tragic shared coping mechanism.
You know, to truly understand the Wingfields, you've got to recognize how they cope. They suffer from this complete, honestly heartbreaking inability to face their disappointing present circumstances. And this is exactly why the structure of the play matters so much. Williams calls this a memory play. What that means is the events we're witnessing, they aren't objective facts. They're selective, subjective, and entirely colored by our narrator, Tom. We're watching a family's illusions filtered through the heavy guilt of a young man looking backward. It's a vital concept to nail down for your essays.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's talk about Amanda and how she uses the Old South as a literal shield against poverty.
Amanda is a perfect example of using the past to hide from the present. Now, she's a character who frequently gets mislabeled as just the bad guy, but she isn't just a villain. She's a terrified, hard-working single mother who has been completely abandoned. Just listen to her line. One Sunday afternoon in Blue Mountain. She's constantly retreating into these nostalgic memories of her youth as a Southern belle, obsessing over her 17 gentlemen callers. And why? Well, because her current reality of poverty and abandonment is just way too painful to bear.
Now here's where it gets interesting, and where you can really earn top marks. You have to show the contradiction within her character. On one hand, she's resilient, she's determined, and she deeply loves her kids. I mean, she's out there selling magazine subscriptions just to keep them afloat. But on the flip side, she's incredibly domineering. She forces her totally unrealistic expectations on Delora and emotionally suffocates Tom. Her maternal love is just entirely tangled up in manipulative control.
If you want to really impress the examiners, integrating specific vocabulary is an absolute game changer. Drop in words like nostalgic, resilient, and domineering to argue how Amanda's tragic flaw, which is her total inability to separate comforting illusions from harsh reality, drives the core conflict in that tiny apartment. She's expecting her modern children to somehow thrive using the outdated rules of the Old South.
Let's shift gears to Section 3. Tom, the dreamer's escape, and his agonizing trap between duty and freedom. Let's see how all this builds tension with Tom. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Tom is suffocating in this mundane warehouse job, sneaking off to the movies every single night just to experience a tiny shred of adventure. But the real high-scoring insight lies in his final, gut-wrenching quote. "Oh, Laura, Laura, I tried to leave you behind me, but I am more faithful than I intended to be." Tom, who by the way acts as William's autobiographical stand-in, manages to escape physically, but emotionally, he never escapes. Not really.
Just like his mom, Tom is a walking contradiction. He is genuinely caring, he literally pays the bills and tries to protect Laura. Yet that frustration boils over into this explosive anger and selfishness, ultimately culminating in him abandoning the family exactly like his father did. He's caught in this brutal, unwinnable tug-of-war between his artistic ambitions and his fundamental duty to his fragile family.
When you're writing about Tom, definitely lock in on keywords like escapist, conflicted, and guilt-ridden. Utilizing these exact terms will help you articulate that Tom's ultimate tragedy is intensely ironic. Think about it. He finally gets the physical freedom he was desperate for, only to be punished with a lifelong haunting guilt over leaving his sister behind. He literally traded one prison for another.
Which brings us to Section 4. Enter Jim, the reality catalyst, and the devastating crash of the present.
So this brings us to Jim O'Connor. Now, a lot of students fall into a huge trap here, calling Jim the villain because, well, he breaks Laura's heart.
But top-tier essays avoid that entirely. Jim isn't malicious, he's a catalyst. He triggers profound change without actually meaning to do any harm. He walks into that apartment as the inevitable, destructive, yet well-meaning force of the realistic world.
Jim is basically the poster child for practicality. He studies public speaking, radio engineering. He really believes in hard work. And he is genuinely kind and honest. He dances with Laura, affectionately calls her blue roses, and gives her this beautiful, albeit fleeting, moment of confidence. But his major weakness? A total lack of awareness. His blunt honesty about his upcoming marriage unintentionally shatters every single illusion the Wingfield family has carefully built up.
To nail your analysis of Jim, rely on words like practical, realistic, and catalyst. By embodying the modern, ambitious, outside world, Jim stands in incredibly stark contrast to Amanda's past, Laura's glass animals, and Tom's cinematic escapes. Jim doesn't destroy their world out of cruelty. He forces them to confront the truth simply by existing in reality.
Okay, let's wrap it all up with Section 5, acing your AL exam with a killer synthesis.
So it's time to pull all these character dynamics together into a unified strategy that'll set your essay far apart from the pack. Think of this as your ultimate essay cheat sheet. It beautifully illustrates the core thematic connective tissue of the whole play. Look at how every single family member shares a desperate need for some kind of safety or fulfillment, yet they use completely different and equally tragic methods to get there. Amanda retreats to her youth, Laura to her delicate glass animals, and Tom to the movies and the open road. They're all running from something, and ironically, it's their individual methods of escape that tear the family apart.
To conclude this explainer, I want to leave you with a high-level challenge, looping right back to the hook we started with today. The real antagonist in the Glass Menagerie is not a person, but reality itself. How will you use the tragic illusions of Amanda, the crushing guilt of Tom, the extreme fragility of Laura, and the catalytic nature of Jim to prove that the true villain they're all helplessly fighting against is just reality? Think deeply on that as you prep, and you will absolutely crush your essay. Good luck.